once in a while, you see what happens on a social media platform like TikTok. For those who are not acquainted with it, it's a video platform where you share videos of yourself. And oftentimes, someone will share something, a funny insight about life or something like that, and it just takes off. It becomes a trend, and loads of people start doing the same thing. And there was a trend a few months ago called girl math, which was girlfriends or wives explaining to their husbands how they perceive money when it comes to shopping. Now, this wasn't disparaging a disparaging thing men were saying about women, but rather women opening up to their husbands about the creative ways in which they do their own mental, personal accounting to justify buying things that they want. And so there was a list of certain rules that they kind of had to themselves. And so these are the kind of things that they would put up in the videos. Girl math is, if I go shopping and I don't spend any money, the next time I go shopping, my budget is doubled. There's a couple of people who I know have worked in banks over the years that may find this sermon very difficult. Anything I pay for in cash is free, because it doesn't change the balance in my account, so it was already written off. Anything I pay for in cash is free. If I buy something and then I return it, I've actually made a profit. If I have money on a voucher, the things I buy are just free. If I increase the cost of an online order to get free shipping, I've actually saved money. And if I spend money the day before I get paid and don't check my balance again until after I've been paid, I didn't spend anything. Now, this is a joke on TikTok called a girl thing, but it's, we all have our versions of this, of ridiculous ways of justifying things. I am the same way. Whenever I get a one-for-all card or a voucher from somebody, that could be spent on household essentials, but it never, ever will be. I will never in my life use a voucher to buy something I need, because that's what real money is for. I use it to buy things that I want, because that's what vouchers are for. Could I technically buy groceries with it? Sure, but never in a million years will I. I'm also the same way with calories. You cannot convince me that the Burger King in Dublin Airport is not calorie-free. It's the only place I can eat. It doesn't count towards my diet if I eat a triple Whopper burger and a bunch of jalapeno poppers before I get on a flight. That's a calorie-neutral meal because there's nowhere else for me to eat. And the same is true of the apple greens on the M1. It doesn't matter how bad the food is, it doesn't count as bad food because I'm moving for some reason. Obviously, these are ridiculous, and you hear it when I say it. And the reason I bring this up is sometimes when we hear the parables of Jesus, because they come from Jesus, we can go, oh no, that definitely makes sense. But I think in these parables that Jesus is telling today, he's trying to be ridiculous to respond to the culture that he's addressing. He doesn't just think these parables need to be spoken. He thinks they need to be spoken as a response to the world that he is experiencing and challenging. They're a response to the world in front of him, to tax collectors and sinners, the unworthy, the unclean, and the undesirable, who have come towards him and found a home in his community, and to the religious leaders, the elite, the holy, and the comfortable, who grumble about who Jesus mixes with and eats with. This guy eats, they say, with the wrong type of people. And that was a really, really big deal in the first century, because table fellowship was a declaration of who was in and who was out. In the first century, particularly in Greco-Roman culture, who you shared a table with was a declaration of the reality of the status quo, of the hierarchy of the world in which you lived. Everyone was striving to eat at the table of someone who was higher up on the food chain than they were, because it bestowed on them and their family honor and prestige. And you would never, if you could avoid it, share a table with someone who had lower status than you, because in the eyes of others, it would see you slide down the pecking order in the eyes of those who are watching. And people were always watching. And so into the middle of this situation, Jesus responds with these parables. In the first, he invites them to think about being a shepherd. Shepherds were kind of the lowest of the low in terms of jobs in his world. And so this was an offensive thing to do in and of itself. So he says to them, imagine being a shepherd. And a bunch of very polite, lovely, well-to-do people would go, I'd actually rather not imagine being a shepherd. He says, imagine being a shepherd. Which one of you wouldn't leave the 99 to go after the one? The answer is, none of us would. Are you out of your mind? What could happen to my 99 sheep in the wilderness if I went after one of them? Especially if it was like lost. Like, how long can I leave 99 for? If I go after the one, 100 of them are lost. It's just 99 of them together. But they don't have a shepherd. There's no sheepdog. There's no pen. They're in the wilderness. Everything is lost if you go after the one. What if wolves caught them? Or sheep? If I own the sheep, or my family owns the sheep, that's a tough loss to absorb. But if I work for someone as a shepherd, I'm in trouble already losing one sheep. How do I say to them, I abandoned the whole flock to go look after one? This is incredible irresponsibility. It's just not practical. You have to cut your losses. You need to know when to quit. You need to make the best out of a bad situation. But not according to Jesus. You see, Jesus goes after the one. He doesn't accept losses. He doesn't quit. He doesn't seek to make the best out of a bad situation. He seeks to change the narrative and tell a different story. He goes on to tell the story of a woman who loses a coin. She's desperately trying to find it, and so she scours the entire house, sweeping the whole place out, lighting a candle so she can look in the dark nooks and crannies of her house for the coin that she has lost. And then, in her desperation, when she does find it, in her relief, she throws a party and invites over her friends and family. It'd be difficult to put down that expense on a mortgage application. How's your saving for your deposit going? Great, yeah, absolutely. I was almost there and then I thought I lost some, but then I found it and then I used it to throw a party for the money I lost. How much did it cost to throw the party for the small amount of money that she had lost? It's silly. It's counterintuitive. In the eyes of the Pharisees who've come to listen to him and who are grumbling, they go, this only makes it worse. This is girl math on TikTok before there was girl math on TikTok. Your accounting doesn't make any sense. Of course you wouldn't go after the one. It's just not practical. Of course you wouldn't have a party to celebrate the small amount of money you lost and spend the same amount of money on the party. It's daft. But that's who God is. We started by talking about girl math, but this is God math. This is the value he puts on lost things and how much he is willing to spend on bringing them back. And this for us, I think, is both a comfort and a challenge. It's a comfort because from a purely human perspective, the God we follow is almost reckless and irresponsible in pursuit of those who get lost in this world. And that's good news for us as people when we get lost and feel lost. Feel like the confusion and the complications and the messiness of our reality in this world make us feel like we're not the ones who deserve to approach this table or be part of this community or come into the presence of God. The God of the sheep and the coin is, in the next verses, also the God of the prodigal son, who comes to meet the one who was lost and invite him home and return to the family. Nothing brings God more joy than bringing home people who have gotten lost and inviting them back to his table. It's a deep and a beautiful comfort, but it's also a radical challenge because we are also called to live like this, to love like this, and to search like this. We are called to live our lives on God math, not measuring a person based on their effectiveness, their productivity, their usefulness, their performance, or their beauty, but to see them through God's eyes as image bearers, as precious children, loved because God is love and a seeker of lost things. So may we learn God math. May we be perceived as a community by others as almost irresponsible in the way in which we imitate the God who gave himself for us to rescue us from our lostness, to bring us home to his table, to his heart, to his family. Amen.